The first day ended with Do-hyun still alive. That was enough to be called a miracle by most of the galaxy. The second day began with him still sitting in the same spot, playing his guitar softly. The Omega Beast had not moved from its position on the cliff edge. Dr. Soman and Captain Minho set up camp at a safe distance. They brought supplies, monitoring equipment, and most importantly, they brought patience. Other team members joined them. Corporal Hyun came with food and water. Gina from the shelter came with her notes on animal behavior. Even Chitrix arrived from orbit, unable to stay away from what might be the most important moment in interspecies relations. "This is insane," Chitrix said, watching through binoculars. "He has been there for 36 hours. The Omega Beast could kill him at any moment." "But it has not," Somin said. "Look at the scans. The creature's aggression levels are dropping slowly, very slowly, but dropping." The breakthrough came on the fourth day. Do-hyun had stopped playing guitar. He was simply sitting, sometimes talking quietly to himself. The Omega Beast had moved closer during the night. Not much, just 20 yards, but it was progress. Then Do-hyun did something that made everyone watching hold their breath. He took out food from his pack. Not for himself. He placed it on a rock halfway between himself and the creature. Then he backed away. The Omega Beast watched. Its form rippled with what might have been suspicion. For an hour, nothing happened. Then slowly the creature moved forward. It approached the food. Its form changed, growing a mouth that could eat. It consumed the food quickly. Then it looked at Do-hyun. Do-hyun smiled. His hands were shaking from exhaustion and fear, but he smiled. "Good," he said. "That is good. You must be hungry. I will bring more tomorrow." The Omega Beast tilted its head again, that curious gesture that seemed so strange coming from a weapon of mass destruction. Over the next 3 days, a routine formed. Do-hyun would place food. The Omega Beast would eat. The distance between them slowly decreased. Do-hyun began to talk more, telling stories about his life, about animals he had helped, about his family. "I had a dog once," Do-hyun said on the 6th day. "His name was Baduk. He was rescued from a fighting ring. Very aggressive at first, very scared, but with time he learned to trust. He became the gentlest dog I ever knew." The Omega Beast moved closer to hear better. It was now only 10 yards away. "You remind me of him," Do-hyun continued. "Not in how you look, but in your eyes. Even though you don't have eyes I can see. You have been hurt, used, made to fight, but that is not all you are." Dr. Soman was reviewing her scans with increasing excitement. "This is incredible," she told Chitrix. "Look at this. The Omega Beast's neural patterns are changing. See these areas here? These are social bonding centers activating." "That is impossible," Chitrix said. "The Omega Beast was created by an extinct species. We do not even know its base biology." "That is exactly my point," Somin said. "Whatever creature they started with, it had social capabilities. They tried to suppress it, tried to turn it into a pure weapon, but you cannot completely remove the need for connection. It is too fundamental to life." On the 7th day, something happened that changed everything. It was late afternoon. Do-hyun was sitting near a rocky outcrop writing in a journal. Above him, some rocks had become loose from the constant wind and vibration of the Omega Beast's movements. The rocks fell without warning. Do-hyun looked up just in time to see a boulder the size of a car coming down at him. He tried to move but knew he was too slow. The Omega Beast moved faster than thought. It was across the distance in a heartbeat. Its form changed, growing massive arms that caught the boulder mid-fall. It held the rock above Do-hyun, protecting him with its own body. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Do-hyun looked up at the creature that had terrified the entire galaxy, the creature that had destroyed civilizations, the creature that was now saving his life. "Thank you," Do-hyun whispered. The Omega Beast carefully set the boulder aside. Then it did something it had never done in its entire existence. It gently touched Do-hyun's shoulder with one transformed limb. The touch was careful, soft, asking if he was okay. Do-hyun slowly reached up and placed his hand on the creature's limb. "I am fine." "Thank you. Thank you for saving me." The Omega Beast's form shimmered. The blue lights along its body pulsed in a new pattern. Not aggressive, not confused. Something else entirely. Something that looked almost like joy. From that moment, everything changed. The Omega Beast stayed close to Do-hyun. When he slept, it guarded him. When he was cold, it used its body heat to warm him. When he played music, it moved its form in rhythm. Over days, it became clear that this was not just tolerance. This was friendship. Captain Minho watched it happen with tears in his eyes. "We did it," he said. "We actually did it." "No," So-min corrected gently. "Do-hyun did it. He showed that creature what kindness was, what patience was, what love was." The news spread across Earth and then across the galaxy. The Omega Beast, the ultimate weapon, had been tamed, not through force, not through technology, through simple compassion. 2 months later, a special facility was built in the Gangwon Mountains. It was called the Interspecies Sanctuary. The Omega Beast lived there, in a large area where it could roam freely, but it always came back to the main building where Do-hyun worked. They gave the creature a name. Do-hyun suggested Bada, which meant ocean in Korean. The name fit. The creature's dark body with blue lights looked like deep water, and like the ocean it was powerful, but could be peaceful. Ambassador Jiwon stood before the Galactic Council one final time. The meeting was being broadcast across hundreds of worlds. Every species was watching. "Earth does not want to conquer the galaxy," she said. "We do not want your territory or your resources. But we do want to help. For too long you have bred creatures for war. You have traumatized them. You have treated them as weapons instead of living beings." She gestured to a screen showing Bada playing with Do-hyun in the sanctuary. The mighty Omega Beast was gently catching a ball in transformed limbs, careful not to damage the toy. "We can help you," Jiwon continued. "We can teach you what we have learned about empathy, about patience, about rehabilitation. We propose a new organization, the Interspecies Rehabilitation and Bonding Initiative. Its goal will be to help heal the creatures you have hurt, to find them homes, to give them the lives they deserve." The council was silent for a long moment. Then one by one they voted. The measure passed. Commander Vexthor stepped forward. He was no longer wearing his military armor. Instead, he wore simple civilian clothes. "I volunteer to be the alien co-director of this initiative," he said. "I have learned much from humans. It is time I helped repair the damage my people have done." Jiwon smiled and shook his hand. "Welcome aboard, friend." The initiative started its work immediately. Humans began traveling to other worlds, teaching what they knew about animal care and rehabilitation. War beasts that had been kept in cages were released into sanctuaries. Creatures that had known only violence learned to play. Species that had been enemies began to work together, united by a common goal of healing. Back on Earth, in the sanctuary in Gangwon Province, a school group came to visit. They were young children, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Their teacher was nervous about letting them near Bada. But Yoonji, who now worked as a junior handler at the sanctuary, just smiled. "It is okay." Bada is very gentle with children. Bada lowered its massive form to the ground. The children gathered around it, their eyes wide with wonder. One little girl, bolder than the rest, reached out and touched its dark skin. "He is warm," she said in surprise. "He is alive," Yoonji said. "Just like us. He has feelings. He can be scared or happy or sad. And right now he is happy because you came to visit." One of the children asked, "Was he always this nice?" Yoonji thought about that. "No," she said honestly. "He was hurt and scared for a very long time. But someone showed him kindness, and that changed everything." The little girl looked up at Bada's smooth, eyeless face. "I think he is beautiful." Bada's form rippled with what everyone who knew him recognized as contentment. He gently extended a limb that had transformed into something like a hand. The little girl took it, and Bada carefully, so carefully, shook her hand. Far above, in orbit, Chitrix watched the scene through monitors on her ship. She was preparing to leave Earth, to return to her homeworld and begin implementing the new training programs there. But she took a moment to watch this small interaction. "Impossible," she whispered to herself. But this time it was not disbelief. It was wonder. A crew member approached. "We are ready to depart when you are, behaviorist Chitrix." "One moment," Chitrix said. She saved the video file of the children with Bada. She would show it to her people. She would show them that the universe was not as cold and violent as they had believed, that even the most dangerous creatures could find peace, that even the deepest trauma could heal. All it took was someone willing to try, someone willing to be patient, someone willing to look at a monster and see a friend. On Earth, in the sanctuary, Do-hyun sat on a bench and watched the children play with Bada. His guitar rested beside him. He was tired. The past months had been the hardest of his life. But as he watched the creature that had terrified the galaxy gently play with children, he smiled. "Who's a good boy?" Yunji called out to Bada. 3 months had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. The Galactic Enforcement Coalition was experiencing what they called the crisis. Half of their war beast handlers had quit their jobs. The reason was simple. Their creatures refused to leave Earth. In Seoul and Busan and dozens of cities across the planet, alien war beasts had found new homes. They lived with humans who fed them, played with them, and gave them names. The beasts were happy. The humans were delighted. The coalition was in chaos. A young man named Taeyang had become famous across Earth's internet. His video channel, Galactic Puppers, had 40 million subscribers. Every day he posted videos of different alien creatures doing normal pet things. The Dreadmaw learning to fetch. The Shredder playing in a ball pit. The Thresher Worm trying to fit through a door that was too small. "Today," Taeyang said to his camera, "we're going to teach Fluffy how to give high fives." He turned to the Krolix Shredder, which had been living in his apartment for 2 months. "Ready, buddy?" Fluffy's shadow form rippled with excitement. Taeyang held up his hand. "High five!" Fluffy solidified one part of its body into a hand shape and slapped Taeyang's palm. The impact was gentle, careful. Taeyang grinned. "Good boy. Who's the smartest shadow monster?" "You are." The video got 20 million views in 3 days. The coalition knew they had to do something. They sent their top expert, a brilliant behaviorist named Chitrix. She was an insectoid, 8 feet tall with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum. She had studied animal behavior for 60 years. She had written 12 books. She thought she understood everything about war beasts. She arrived on Earth completely certain that the humans were doing something wrong. Maybe they were drugging the creatures. Maybe they were using mind control. There had to be an explanation for this madness. Ambassador Jiwon met her at the spaceport in Seoul. "Welcome to Earth, Chitrix. We're honored to have you here." "I am here to investigate," Chitrix said coldly. Her translator made her voice sound sharp and mechanical. "This situation is unnatural. War beasts do not simply become peaceful. Would you like to see for yourself?" Jiwon asked. They drove to a large building on the edge of the city. It had been a sports stadium once. Now it was something different. A sign over the entrance read, "Emergency Interspecies Animal Shelter." Inside, Chitrix stopped walking. Her compound eyes tried to process what she was seeing. There were dozens of alien war beasts. They were everywhere. But they were not fighting or destroying. They were playing. A Gorath Ravager was gently tossing a ball to a group of human children. A spine horror was sleeping in a massive bed made of soft blankets. 3 Void Stalkers were playing a game of tag, phasing in and out of visibility while humans cheered them on. A young woman approached. This was Gina, a researcher who had been working at the shelter since it opened. "Hello. You must be Chitrix. Welcome. Would you like a tour?" "This is impossible," Chitrix whispered. "It's actually pretty simple," Gina said cheerfully. She led Chitrix deeper into the shelter. "We just treat them like animals, not weapons. They have needs. Social needs, emotional needs, physical needs. When those needs are met, they're happy." They stopped at a large enclosure where a thresher worm was curled up in a massive pile of sand. 2 human workers were carefully cleaning between its scales with soft brushes. The worm was making a deep rumbling sound of contentment. "That's Noodle," Gina explained. "He came here very stressed. Lots of old scars. We think he was in many battles. But look at him now." Chitrix stepped closer. Her scientific mind was racing. "What have you done to it? What drugs are you using?" "No drugs," Gina said. "Just patience. And this." She picked up a treat from a bucket. It was a large chunk of meat specially prepared. She offered it to Noodle, who gently took it from her hand. Positive reinforcement. When they do something good, they get rewards. When they're stressed, we give them space. It's basic animal training. Captain Minho appeared from another section of the shelter. "Chitrix, good to meet you. Come see this." He led her to a training area where Corporal Hyun was working with Fluffy the Shredder. Hyun had set up an obstacle course made of boxes and poles. "Okay, Fluffy," Hyun said. "Through the tunnel." Fluffy flowed through a large tube, his shadow form compressing and expanding easily. Around the pole, Fluffy circled a standing pole, moving gracefully. "Now sit." Fluffy's form condensed into a solid shape approximating sitting. His body rippled with pride. "Good boy." Yun gave him a treat and lots of pets. "You're doing so great." Chitrix watched this for several minutes. Her mind was struggling to understand. These were creatures designed for war, engineered for destruction. They should not be capable of this kind of behavior. "How?" she finally asked. "How are you doing this?" Hyun looked up. "Doing what?" "Training him? It's not that different from training any animal. You just need to understand what motivates them and work with their natural behaviors." "But they are war beasts," Chitrix insisted. "They are not natural." "Everything's natural if it's alive," Hyun said simply. "Sure, they were made in labs or bred for fighting. But they're still living things. They still have feelings. They still want connection." Dr. Samin arrived with a tablet full of data. "Chitrix, I'm glad you're here. I want to show you something." She pulled up charts and graphs. "This is brain scan data from 12 different species war beasts. See these areas here? These are social bonding centers. Every single one of them has it." "That should not be possible," Chitrix said. "The bonding centers should be suppressed in war beast breeding." "Should be, yes," Soman agreed. "But they're not. Or at least not completely. I think the problem is that the coalition tried to breed out social behavior. But it's such a fundamental part of animal life that it can't be fully removed. It just gets buried, traumatized." She clicked to another image. "Humans are persistence predators. We evolved to track, understand, and outlast other animals. Part of that evolution gave us incredible empathy. We can read emotions across species. We can understand pack dynamics even in creatures that aren't from our world." Chitrix spent 3 days at the shelter. She watched humans work with creatures that should have been impossible to tame. She saw patience where she expected force. She saw kindness where she expected fear. She saw war beasts playing, sleeping peacefully, and forming bonds with their human caretakers. On the 3rd day, something happened that changed everything for Chitrix. A new war beast arrived, one of her own species' creations. It was called a razor mantis, and it was aggressive, scared, and violent from years of combat training. The humans did not force it. They gave it space. They left food at a safe distance. They spoke softly. And slowly, over hours, the razor mantis calmed down. By evening, it was eating from Gina's hand. Chitrix felt something she had not felt in decades. Shame. Her species had created that creature. They had traumatized it. They had turned something that could have been peaceful into a weapon. And humans, in just hours, had begun to undo that damage. That night, Chitrix wrote her report to the Galactic Coalition. It was 50 pages long, but the conclusion was simple. Humans were the galaxy's apex pack bonders. They could form emotional connections with virtually any creature that had even basic social behavior. They were not doing anything wrong. They were doing everything right. She recommended that the coalition immediately withdraw all war beasts from combat use. She suggested that humanity could help rehabilitate these creatures. She proposed a new organization to study and implement human-animal bonding techniques across the galaxy. The coalition leaders read her report in silence. Then they read it again. They did not want to believe it. But Chitrix was their best expert. If she said it was true, it probably was. Still, there was one coalition leader who refused to accept defeat. "We have one final option," he said. "The Omega Beast." The council chamber went silent. Someone gasped. Another member stood up in protest. "That is too dangerous," they said. "The Omega Beast has never been controlled. It has destroyed everything it has ever touched." "Exactly," the leader said. "If anything can break humanity's spirit, it is that." The vote was close. But in the end, fear won over wisdom. They approved the release of the Omega Beast. It would be humanity's final test, a test that many believed they could not pass. The containment ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a cold morning in November. It was different from the other ships, bigger, darker. It did not land. It just hung there in space like a warning. Commander Vexthor received the message first. His scales turned pale when he read it. He immediately went to find Ambassador Jiwon. He found her having breakfast in a cafe in Seoul, reviewing reports on her tablet. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Somewhere private." They went to her office. Vexthor locked the door behind them. His hands were shaking slightly, something Jiwon had never seen before. "They are sending the Omega Beast," he said. Jiwon set down her coffee. "What is that?" "It is a mistake," Vexthor said. He began to pace. "The Omega Beast was created by an ancient race that died out thousands of years ago. It is part biological, part cybernetic. It was designed as the ultimate weapon. It has destroyed moons. It has made entire species extinct. How many people have controlled it? Jiwan asked. No one, Vexthor said. It has never been controlled. It is kept in permanent stasis. The Coalition only uses it as a threat. I did not think they would ever actually release it. He turned to face her. Ambassador, I have grown to respect your people. I have seen what you can do. But this is different. The Omega Beast does not just attack with claws and teeth. It projects telepathic fear. It adapts to any threat. It cannot be reasoned with. You need to evacuate your planet. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Where will they release it? In a remote area. They will give you time to evacuate nearby towns. Then we won't evacuate the whole planet, Jiwan said. We'll send a team. Let us try. You will die, Vexthor said flatly. Maybe, Jiwan agreed. But 3 months ago you thought your Dreadmaw would terrify us too. Let us try. The Coalition chose the Gangwon Province Mountains for the release point. It was far from major cities but still on Earth. They wanted humanity to see their final weapon. They wanted Earth to understand that this time was different. Military forces established a wide perimeter. Towns within 50 miles were evacuated. News helicopters hovered at a safe distance. The world watched on television and internet streams. Everyone knew something bad was coming. Dr. Soman volunteered for the response team. So did Captain Minho. Corporal Hyun insisted on coming too. But the most important volunteer was a civilian named Do-hyun. Do-hyun was 40 years old and had worked with animals his entire life. He had rehabilitated abused dogs. He had worked with traumatized horses. He had even helped retrain aggressive tigers at a sanctuary. He was quiet, patient, and completely unafraid. This is different from anything you have worked with, Minho warned him. Every animal is different, Do-hyun replied. But the principles are the same. Fear, aggression, trauma. These things can be healed. It just takes time. The Omega Beast was released at dawn. The containment ship lowered a massive pod to the ground. There was a long moment of silence. Then the pod opened. The first thing that emerged was sound. Not a roar. Something worse. It was a frequency that bypassed the ears and went straight into the brain. It was the sound of every nightmare, every fear, every dark thing that lived in the back of the mind. Soldiers 50 yards away dropped to their knees. Some began crying. Others screamed. The fear was not rational. It was primal, genetic, overwhelming. Do-hyun felt it too. His heart raced. His hands shook. Every instinct told him to run. But he had expected this. He had prepared. He closed his eyes and focused on his breathing. In and out. Slow and steady. Everyone stay back, he said into his radio. His voice was shaking but clear. I am going closer. Negative, came the response. Do not approach. We cannot protect you. I don't need protection, Do-hyun said. I need to see it. He walked forward slowly. Each step was a battle against his own fear. The telepathic projection got stronger as he got closer. His vision started to blur. He saw things that were not there, shadows that moved, shapes in the corner of his eye. Then he saw the Omega Beast itself. It was massive, 30 feet tall. Its body was constantly shifting, changing, adapting. One moment it had 6 legs, the next moment 4, then 8. Its skin was dark gray-black with lines of blue light running through it like circuits. Parts of it were clearly mechanical, but they moved like living tissue. Its head had no eyes, just a smooth surface that reflected nothing. The creature turned toward Do-hyun. Though it had no eyes, he could feel it watching him. For a long moment, neither moved. Do-hyun stood there fighting his terror. The Omega Beast stood there analyzing this small creature that had not run away. Then the Omega Beast roared. The sound was physical. It hit like a wave. Do-hyun flew backward, landing hard on the rocky ground. His ears were ringing. Blood dripped from his nose. He should have stayed down. Any rational person would have stayed down. But Do-hyun slowly stood up. He wiped the blood from his face. And he took another step forward. Please, he said quietly. Please, I am not here to hurt you. The Omega Beast charged. It moved faster than anything that size should move. Do-hyun did not run. He dropped flat to the ground, making himself small and non-threatening. The creature stopped inches away from him. Do-hyun could feel its breath, could smell something like ozone and metal. The fear was so intense he thought his heart might stop. But he noticed something. The Omega Beast's aggressive display followed a pattern. It charged but did not strike. It roared but did not bite. It was testing him, checking if he was a threat. "You are scared," Do-hyun whispered. "Aren't you?" The creature tilted its head. The movement was oddly curious. Do-hyun slowly raised himself to his knees. His whole body was shaking. "You have been locked away for so long, used as a weapon, never given a choice. I understand. I know what trauma looks like." The Omega Beast backed up slightly. Its form rippled with confusion. This was not how things usually went. Creatures either attacked or fled. They did not talk softly and stay still. "I'm going to stay here," Do-hyun said. "I am not going to hurt you. I am not going to force you to do anything. But I am here, and I will stay here as long as it takes." He sat down on the ground. The rocks were cold and uncomfortable. The telepathic fear still pulsed through his mind. But he stayed. The Omega Beast watched him for a long time. Then slowly it moved away. It did not leave the area. It just moved to a cliff edge about 100 yards away. It sat there, its form constantly shifting, watching Do-hyun watch it. Back at the command center, Dr. Soman was analyzing the encounter. "It did not kill him," she said in wonder. "It had every opportunity, but it chose not to." Captain Minho was pale. "He should not be alive." "But he is," Somin said. She looked at her monitors. "And look at this. The Omega Beast's energy readings. They are not aggressive. They are confused, maybe even curious." "Chitrik said this creature could not be reasoned with," Minho said. "Maybe no one ever tried," Soman replied. In orbit, Commander Vexthor watched his screens in silence. He had been certain that this would end in tragedy, that the humans would finally learn fear. Instead, one man sat peacefully on the ground while the galaxy's most dangerous weapon watched him from a distance. "What are they?" Vexthor whispered to himself. "What kind of species does this?" On the ground, Do-hyun pulled out a simple guitar he had brought in his pack. His hands were still shaking, but he began to play. Just a simple melody, soft and calm. The Omega Beast's head turned toward the sound. Its form stopped shifting quite so much. For just a moment it was still, listening. The alien ships appeared over Seoul on a Tuesday morning. They were massive, dark things that blocked out the sun and made shadows fall across the entire city. People stopped on the streets and looked up. Some took photos. Others called their families. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the humans below through his viewing screen. He was a Skarath, tall and covered in deep green scales that marked him as a warrior of the highest rank. His black eyes studied the city with satisfaction. This would be easy. It always was. "Deploy the Dreadmaw," he ordered. His second officer hesitated. "Commander, perhaps we should attempt communication first." Vexithor's tail swished with annoyance. "We have conquered 300 worlds. The Dreadmaw has broken the will of every species that saw it. These humans will be no different." He leaned forward. "Send it down." The landing craft descended toward the center of the city, touching down in a large plaza near the government buildings. The ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. For a moment, there was silence. Then came the sound. First, the breathing, deep and rhythmic like a furnace heating metal. Then the footsteps, each one making the ground tremble. The Dreadmaw emerged from the darkness of the ship. It was a creature of nightmares, 12 feet tall at the shoulder, with 6 legs that ended in claws the size of swords. Its body was covered in obsidian black scales that reflected no light. Venomous spines ran along its back, dripping with toxins that could paralyze a grown warrior in seconds. Its head was massive, with jaws that could crush steel, and eyes that glowed red like burning coals. The Dreadmaw opened its mouth and roared. The sound was designed to trigger fear in every species the Skarath had encountered. It was a mix of frequencies that made hearts race and minds fill with panic. Windows shattered for 3 blocks. Car alarms went off. Birds fled from the trees. Vexthor watched his screen, waiting for the humans to run, waiting for the screaming to start, waiting for them to fall to their knees and beg for mercy. Instead, someone said, "Oh my God, look at him." A woman stepped forward from the crowd. She had short black hair and wore a business suit. She was holding her phone up, recording a video. "He's amazing. Look at those scales." Someone else shouted, "Is he friendly?" A man asked. Vexthor's mouth fell open. His second officer made a confused clicking sound. A human in a military uniform approached the landing zone. This was Captain Minho, though Vexthor did not know his name yet. He walked calmly toward the Dreadmaw, followed by a woman in formal dress who carried a briefcase. This was Ambassador Jiwan. "Hello," Jiwan called out in clear, unafraid tones. "Welcome to Earth. We received your message about wanting to talk. This is quite an impressive entrance." The Dreadmaw roared again, louder this time. It lowered its head and spread its spines in the classic threat display. Venom dripped onto the pavement, making the concrete sizzle and smoke. Minho pulled out his phone and took several pictures. The detail on those scales is incredible. Are they naturally occurring or bred for? "Can I touch him?" Jiwan asked, stepping closer. "Stay back." Vexthor's voice boomed from speakers on the landing craft. "That is the Dreadmaw. It is a weapon of war. It has destroyed armies. Show the proper fear!" "A weapon?" Jiwan looked confused. "But he's beautiful." "Does he have a name?" Vexthor did not answer. He was too busy trying to understand what was happening. The Dreadmaw was supposed to terrify. It was bred for terror. It had genetic modifications that made it produce fear-inducing pheromones. It had been trained since birth to dominate and destroy, but the humans were gathering around it like it was some kind of attraction. Young woman pushed through the security line that Minho's soldiers were trying to establish. She could not have been more than 20 years old, wearing jeans and a bright yellow jacket. Her name was Yunji, and she had no fear in her eyes at all. "Sir, ma'am, you need to step back," a soldier said, reaching for her arm. Yunji ducked under his hand and walked straight up to the Dreadmaw. The creature's head turned to follow her movement. Its red eyes focused on the small, soft thing that approached without hesitation. "Hey there, big guy," Yunji said softly. She reached up, and before anyone could stop her, she scratched the Dreadmaw under its chin. The creature froze. Its spines lowered slightly. Deep in its throat, a sound started. Not a roar. Something else. Something that had never been recorded in all the centuries the Skarath had bred these creatures. The Dreadmaw was purring. Its tail, thick as a tree trunk and covered in spikes, began to sway back and forth, slowly, carefully, almost like a dog wagging. "Oh, you like that, don't you?" Yunji scratched harder. "Who's a good boy?" "You are, yes you are." "This is impossible," Vexthor whispered. He checked his data screens. The Dreadmaw's aggression levels were dropping. Its stress hormones were decreasing. It was entering a state that the Skarath had never seen before. Contentment. More humans gathered around. Someone brought water in a large bucket. The Dreadmaw drank. Someone else brought food, though they were not sure what it ate. The creature sniffed the offered meat and ate it delicately, careful not to bite the hand that fed it. Minho walked up to Vexthor's landing craft. "Commander, I think we should talk. It seems like there's been a misunderstanding. Your, friend here seems very nice. Maybe we can discuss this situation over some food? We have excellent barbecue in this city." Vexthor could not speak. He watched his ultimate weapon of terror getting belly rubs from a group of human teenagers. One of them had put a hat on one of its heads. The Dreadmaw had 4 heads. They were now trying to find 3 more hats. "This is not how conquest works," Vexthor finally said. "Conquest?" Jiwan looked surprised. Oh no. I think we need to have a longer conversation than I thought." She smiled, but it was not a mean smile. It was patient, understanding. "Commander, why don't you come down here? Let's talk about this. I think Earth might not be what you expected." Vexthor slowly descended the ramp. As he walked toward the humans, he passed his Dreadmaw. The creature looked at him, then looked back at Yunji, who was still scratching its scales and talking to it in a soft, gentle voice. For the first time in his military career, Commander Vexthor realized that he might have made a terrible mistake, not in coming to Earth, but in thinking that fear was the only universal language. The humans had a different language entirely, and his Dreadmaw was already learning to speak it. The Galactic Enforcement Coalition held an emergency meeting 3 days after the Sol incident. Vexthor stood before the Council of 12 Species, trying to explain what had happened. They did not believe him. "Your report states that the humans petted the Dreadmaw," Council Leader Thexnor said. "She was a crystalline being whose body glowed with disapproval. This is clearly an error in translation." "It is not an error," Vexthor replied. "They scratched it. They fed it. They took photographs with it. One human child braided flowers into its spine ridge. Impossible, another council member declared. The Dreadmaw is designed to produce fear. It is genetically programmed to terrify all sentient beings. Not humans, Vexthor said quietly. The council argued for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. If one war beast failed, they would send more. They would bring creatures from 12 different species, each one more terrifying than the last. Surely the humans would break when faced with the accumulated nightmares of the entire galaxy. The next ships arrived oversold 2 weeks later. This time the humans were ready. They had set up a welcome area with water stations, food tables, and medical equipment. The military was present, but they stood back, curious rather than defensive. Marine Corporal Hyun stood at the front of the greeting party. He was young, strong, and had grown up on a farm where his family raised cattle and dogs. Next to him was Dr. Soman, a xenobiologist who had been studying the Dreadmaw for the past 2 weeks. She carried a tablet filled with notes and observations. Remember, Soman said to Hyun, we approach slowly. We let them make the first move. We show no aggression. Just like meeting a new dog, Hyun agreed. The first creature emerged from the alien ship. It was called a Krolix Shredder, and it was made of living shadow. Its body had no solid form, shifting and changing like smoke, but its claws were real enough. They were pure white against its dark form, each one dripping with acid that could melt through armor. The shredder moved across the ground like oil spreading over water. Its form rippled with what the alien said was anger. It had no face, but everyone could feel its malice like a cold wind. Okay, Hyun said, taking a slow breath. That's actually pretty scary. Stay calm, Soman whispered. Remember, it can probably sense fear. The shredder rushed forward in a sudden burst of speed. Soldiers raised their weapons. But Hyun stepped forward instead, arms out to his sides, making himself big but not threatening. Hey, he called out. Hey there, buddy. It's okay. The shredder stopped. Its form rippled with what might have been confusion. Hyun slowly crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. Come here, he said softly. Come on. Nobody's going to hurt you. The shredder moved closer. Its acid claws scraped against the concrete. It circled Hyun once, twice, studying him. Then slowly it lowered its body. Its form became less aggressive, more curious. Soman stepped forward carefully. Can I scan you? She asked, holding up her tablet. Just to check your vitals. Make sure you're healthy. The shredder allowed it. The scan showed elevated stress levels but no aggression. Soman made notes. Interesting. Your body temperature suggests you're anxious, not angry. Is this your first time meeting a new species without fighting them? The alien handlers watching from the ship were confused. One of them spoke through a communicator. The shredder is trained to attack on sight. Why does it not attack? Because we're not threatening it, Hyun explained. He slowly reached out his hand. May I? The shredder's form solidified slightly around where Hyun's hand touched. It was cold, like touching fog on a winter morning. But it did not hurt him. It did not use its claws. Good boy, Hyun said. What a good boy you are. By the end of the day, the shredder had been given the name Fluffy by the human soldiers. It followed Hyun around like a pet. When it was time to return to the ship, it refused to go. The alien handlers had to physically drag it away, and it made sounds like crying. The next creature arrived a week later. This one was a thresher worm, massive and covered in scales so sharp they could cut through starship hulls. It was 50 feet long and moved like a snake, but with dozens of legs along its body. Its mouth was a circular saw of teeth. Children from a nearby school were on a field trip to see the aliens. When the thresher worm appeared, their teachers tried to get them to safety. But the children were fascinated, not afraid. Can we pet it? A little boy asked. I don't think that's safe, his teacher said nervously. But the boy walked forward anyway. The thresher worm lowered its massive head to look at this tiny human. Its breath was hot and smelled like metal. The boy reached up and touched one of its scales. Careful, the teacher shouted. The scale tilted under the boy's touch, moving aside so it would not cut him. The thresher worm made a rumbling sound deep in its throat. Not aggressive. Content. Within an hour, there were a dozen children climbing on the thresher worm's back. It moved slowly, carefully, making sure none of them fell off. It gave them rides around the plaza. Parents took pictures. The alien handlers watched in stunned silence. By the end of the month, 11 different species war beasts had been brought to Earth. All of them had been befriended. The Goroth Ravager, with its 6 arms and 4 heads, became famous on the internet when someone put tiny hats on each head. The Voidstalker, which could turn invisible and phase through walls, started playing hide-and-seek with human children. The Spine Horror, covered in poisonous needles, learned to be gentle enough to accept pets from elderly people in a nursing home. Dr. Soman compiled all her research into a detailed report. She presented it to both the Earth government and the Galactic Coalition. Humans evolved alongside predators, she explained, showing images on a large screen. Wolves, bears, big cats. These were creatures that could easily kill us. But instead of just fearing them, we learned to understand them. We domesticated wolves into dogs. We studied bear behavior. We learned to live with dangerous animals. She clicked to the next slide, showing human children playing with tigers in sanctuaries, elephants being trained through positive reinforcement, and dolphins performing with trainers. We have a genetic trait that you might call pack bonding, Soman continued. We form emotional attachments to other species. We read their body language. We understand their emotions. We see potential friends, not just threats, an alien council member interrupted. But our war beasts are engineered to be threatening. They are weapons. They're living things, Soman replied gently. They have emotions. They can feel stress, fear, and loneliness. Your war beasts are not happy. They're traumatized. They've been bred and trained for violence, but under that, they're social creatures. They want connection. And humans can give them that. The report went viral across the galaxy's communication networks. Other species read it with disbelief, some with horror, a few with hope. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Vexthor sat in a park in Busan. His personal dreadmaw, Skrull, who had been his companion for 20 years, sat nearby. But Skrull was not looking at Vexthor. He was looking at a human family having a picnic. They had food. They had laughter. They had a small dog that Skrull desperately wanted to play with. Skrull, Vexthor said. Come, Skrull looked at him, then looked back at the family. The mother noticed and smiled. He can come over if he wants. We have plenty of food. Skrull stood up and walked to the family. They fed him. They petted him. They laughed when he gently played with their dog, his massive claws careful not to hurt the tiny creature. Vexthor watched his oldest friend abandon him for strangers who offered nothing but kindness. For the first time in his life, the commander understood why the war beasts were choosing Earth. It was not about power or strength. It was about something the Galactic Coalition had never given their weapons: love.